What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Hey, I realized I'm about 7 months late to making a follow-up video in regards to the GT38R turbo for the 7.3 diesel. Got a little busy there and completely spaced it. But anyway, I've had about 7 months to really get to know the turbo and get a feel for it. And now I'll give you part two. A little late, but late is better than never, I guess. So my first impressions of the turbo were not all that great, but as I thought about it, I had that riff-raff high-pressure oil line crossover installed on my truck. And I think on part one I mentioned how the truck was just acting a little bit weird. It preferred the stock tune over, any added horsepower or torque. But what I'm realizing is to get that turbo on, I actually had to remove that high-pressure crossover line, which introduces air into your high pressure oil system. And as we all know, once you have air in there, your truck's going to run just a little bit funky until it works all the air bubbles out. So when I said I was experiencing a better experience in stock versus a tune, what's probably happening is as I put it on the higher tune levels, the fuel demand went up, and with air bubbles in the system, the injectors and everything just couldn't quite keep up. The oil pressure couldn't quite keep up to pace. So anyway, after about 50 to 100 miles, that issue resolved itself. The turbo ran great. I am happy with the turbo in all. I don't feel bad about my purchase. Would I do it again? I'm not sure. It's right in the middle price point there. You could go up to about $2,600 and get some crazy turbo that's just gonna rock your world. Or you can upgrade the stock one for probably $700. You'd have a pretty well set up stock turbo. And honestly, if you're someone with the stock turbo right now and you just kind of want a little bit more, I would probably recommend just get a riff-raff billet wheel. And while you have the turbo off, rebuild it. Now learn from my mistakes, and after you rebuild the journal bearing, have it balanced by a professional shop. That's where I went wrong. I rebuilt the turbo, put it all back together, figured it's fine, and my turbo, shit the bed and took chunks of the compressor wheel off and a whole bunch of other things. Bent the shaft, and that was me just not doing my homework. I just bought the kit, did it, and that's what led me to get the GT38R. So again, like I said, if you have a stock turbo and you just want a little bit more out of it, I'm not sure I would go for the GT38R. I mean, if you've got cash laying around and you just want to try it, go ahead. I'd probably just beef up the stock turbo, get a riff-raff billet wheel, get a ported outlet housing, and rebuild it while it's out and have it balanced. And I think you'll have a pretty good setup that you're happy with. I would say the greatest pro that I noticed with this turbo is that the EGTs went way down. I had a chance to tow my camp trailer up some pretty steep grades this summer, and my EGTs on average were about 300 degrees less than normal. I stayed right close to the 800, 900 range, with some of the steepest grades getting up to maybe 1050. So if you're a guy that tows a lot, that's a big deal. Those EGTs, keeping them low, that's a big deal. I don't tow heavy loads a whole lot with that truck, or I didn't. So EGTs were never really a problem for me. But if you're someone who, like I said, you're towing heavy loads, maybe towing horses or hay or whatever, a big fifth wheel, it may be a good option for you. Let's see what else. The torque curve on the GT38R is a little bit different than stock. With the stock turbo, now I did have the billet compressor wheel, but I felt like the torque kind of came on at about 1800 RPMs, and it held on until just about redline. With the GT38 turbo, it felt like the torque came on about 2200 RPMs and kind of flatlined around 2800. After you got past 28, it almost kind of, like I said, it just kind of flatlined on you. So it wasn't really a problem. It just took some getting used to. You get used to your towing methods. And that was just a little bit of a change. But, man, if you could keep it in between that 22 to 28, it pulled anything just fine, kept the EGTs down. The noise wasn't too bad. I did not get a billet wheel put onto this one because I wanted to keep the noise down. Turbo whistle's cool and all until you go on a 5-hour road trip with a camper behind you and kids and dogs in the truck, and it just kind of gets annoying after a while. So noise wise, it was a lot quieter than the stock turbo with a billet wheel, which was really nice. Reduction in black smoke on pretty much all the tunes, and I think that's just due to the increased airflow. Even with the PHP Hydra all the way turned up, it's real hard to get black smoke, which I personally like. I don't really like blowing black smoke everywhere, but to each is their own. So all in all, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. Now, the one thing that I will complain about is on the stock turbos on these trucks, one of the biggest complaints or issues people have is the chatter you get when you're in high gear, and the turbo just has the technical term is called cavitation. I was disappointed to find that the GT38 actually had this in certain circumstances. It didn't happen as often as the stock turbo, but it did happen. I'm sure a billet wheel, compressor wheel, would solve this problem, but it just kind of annoyed me that you'd spent that much money on an upgrade and it still had that cavitation issue. So all in all, if you're looking for a drop-in replacement for your stock turbo, it's going to get you lower EGTs, maybe a little more power, a little more kick in the pants when you stomp on the pedal. It's probably a great turbo for you. Now, I have stock injectors, so who knows, if I got some upgraded injectors, that might really give me the full potential of this truck and that turbo. But anyway, that's part 2. I don't want to ramble on too long. That's part 2. If you have any questions or if I didn't cover anything, let me know. Leave it in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And yeah, I'm actually no longer driving that truck. I'm driving a 2018 filthy Dodge Ram 3500 with the Cummins and Aisin transmission. So if you have any questions on this truck here, I'd be happy to answer them for you. But that's part 2, 7 months later. See you guys.